Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Between the Lines podcast. I'm EDGYTIM, joined by Mike Clark. And Mike, we are knee deep in the playoffs, round one in the books, getting ready for an exciting round two. And yeah, so far so good. I thought weather-wise, it turned out pretty decent last weekend. I know I got a little bit of mist in my Friday game out at Richards, but outside of that, Mike, pretty decent overall.
Yeah, I guess I've talked to a few people that did get rained on. I was lucky enough not to be in that group. I know that it rained at Oswego, and there was at least one more game. I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, happy for that. Hoping for 4 more weeks of not terrible weather, and we'll see where we go.
We definitely will. A lot to go over, a lot to cover. I know you were at multiple games. I was at multiple games, so we'll do that. We'll obviously take a look at some of the round two matchups as well. You can hear paper shuffling and everything else going on. So we've got just about everything lined up for you, and we'll get after it. So first, Mike, we'll start with you. Fill us in on your games. And well, you started out Friday with a dandy between Lions and York, a rematch, two West Suburban Silver opponents.
Absolutely. Back at Lions. Well, the teams were back at Lions for the second straight week. I was not there for the week 9 game, but Lions comes out with a 24-21 win. Ryland Avance, um, their senior place kicker, kicked 3 field goals, including the game winner as time ran out. He is a star on their soccer team, probably the best player on their team, according to Lions football coach John Butcher. Um, their soccer season ended on Tuesday. He was doing double duty up until that point. Kind of crazy too. Lions is, as a lot of people know, is a 2 campus school. The main campus is in Lagrange, and the South Campus is down in Western Springs. So, and soccer actually plays in Lagrange, so he would have to go back and forth for practice. But big win for the Lions. EJ Kuhlman, who set a program record for rushing the week before. This one, he had 29 carries, 146, and a TD. Jack Slightum had 153 passing yards and a TD. Henry Duda had another monster game for York. 31 carries, 272, 3 touchdowns. So 2 weeks in a row, Henry Duda had more than 500 yards, 5 touchdowns for York against Lions, and Lions still somehow won both of the games. The couple of other observations, it was one of the cleanest games I've seen all year in terms of
Yeah, that's how
not.
they play.
Yeah, there was one penalty or one turnover rather, and there were 5 penalties total. So I mean, not clean in the sense of not having
Right,
dirty play, quote unquote, but
right.
just very very
Very
sharply
mistake
executed.
free. Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Hey,
So
real quickly, did you happen to talk to the coaches either before or after about having to play each other back to back? Did they mention or talk about that at all or no?
yeah, that came up. John Butcher talked about how the week before they basically threw the entire playbook at York. So they held nothing back because they wanted to
Yeah.
win that game. They wanted to win, or they wanted to deny York part of the conference championship. So just the tough part about it being that they didn't have anything left in reserve that they could pull out. They didn't have a hot potato play like the Bears did on Sunday. Um, you know, a few other wrinkles that Ben Johnson pulled out of his playbook. The Lions didn't have any of that. And I mean, and I, I posted this toward the end of the game. It's absurd that one of these two teams is going home, and it goes back to
Yeah.
the seeding situation. The West Suburban Silver teams beat up on each other, so that's how this game wound up being in the first round. And I do want to return to that a little bit later.
Yeah, we will for sure.
But
And we're gonna have the same situation this weekend in 7 with Downers North and Glenbard West. So I'm
right,
sure we'll talk about that as well.
yeah, Saturday, you and I were both out at Gately. I stayed for the whole game. You didn't, but
Nice,
okay.
nice. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute, but go ahead.
Yeah, St. Francis 35, Morgan Park 28. Zach Washington, the Michigan State commit, 6 touches for 157 and a touchdown. And actually, 3 of those touches were kickoff returns, including an 80-yarder that he took to the house right after Morgan Park went up 2 scores. That kind of switched the momentum back to the Spartans. Different game plan. Bob McMillan from St. Francis, they've been a very pass-heavy team. Brock Phillip has around 2,000 yards passing this year. He threw 9 passes in this game, and they went with Tobias Campbell, just kind of pounding the ball. He's what do they list him at? 6 foot 210, something like that. 25 carries, 157, 2 touchdowns. So they basically just kept pounding and pounding and pounding, and it wound up being effective for them. For Morgan Park, sophomore quarterback Ronald Smith Jr. had a couple of touchdown passes to Nasir Rankin, the Illinois commit. I do want to talk about one other thing, though, in this game.
I know. Go ahead.
St. Francis was 4th and 5 in Morgan Park territory in the second half. And referee comes out, throws a flag. It's a delay of game call. Okay. Usually on the offense when you see a delay of game. This is on the defense. Home team. It was called on the band because apparently they were playing too long. And I talked to another coach about this afterwards, and he said that the IHSA has made this a point of emphasis this year. There's actually a bulletin email about it. Said first instance you warn, there's a warning, and then the second instance there's no second warning. It's like you make the call. Now, I don't know. I don't like the rule. I don't like the fact that there's only one warning. Chris James, Morgan Park coach, suggested a few solutions to that. Just tell them to stop, then give St. Francis more time on the play clock. To make. And I am not one of the people. There's some people who say, "Well, you don't make that call in that situation." I'm not like that. If it's a rule, you call it. But I think it's a really bad rule because you're taking the game out of the hands of the players.
Agreed.
Excuse me.
Totally
And we've seen this before. We've seen, you and I have both seen bands playing, right up until the snap, and again, that didn't decide the game right there. Excuse me.
It was a somewhat critical point in the game.
It was, sure. Yeah, it was one of the moments that the game could have turned on for sure. If Morgan Park stops them there, we don't know what happens. And also St. Francis may get the first down anyway. So, but that I just don't like that call in that situation from the standpoint of I don't like that call. Period. I think that. Yeah. I don't think it should rise to the level of a penalty unless it's egregious and repeated and it happens over and over and over again. And then, then you throw the flag, but not just after the second instance. So
first of all, welcome to playoff weather. Mike has his playoff cough congestion working already.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mine will be here by next week, I'm sure.
I did go to one more game. Oh, sorry.
Hold on. No worries. First of all, I love the Morgan Park band. So no one bag on the Morgan Park band, please, because they do a great job. I love when they're there. It definitely adds the atmosphere of the game for sure. I agree. Not a great time to call that. It just, again, the timing was not good. Good for St. Francis, obviously. Really good game, Mike. I thought what I was impressed, and I know you listed Ronald Smith Jr., his development from when I saw him in week 1 to week 11, really impressed. I mean, he was a completely different looking player compared to the kid I saw during week 1. And, he really, really brought his game along. Unfortunately, Nasir Rankin is, going to graduate, but, Ronald comes back and, again, just a tough loss for Morgan Park and a big win, I think, for St. Francis for sure. St. Francis has nothing easy if you look at their path. I mean, they have got some monsters. They play another great team this week. So I tell you what, if Bob McMillan and the Spartans get there and get downstate, they're going to earn their way. There is no question. Right out of the gate with Morgan Park. And so it was just a great game. And yes, I did leave a little early, admittedly, because I had to go get to West Aurora for a game. But the only time I do that is during playoffs. I do allow myself some time for travel. But continue, sir.
Okay. Fair enough. And then after that game, I went out to Sandburg, hosting its first playoff game in 15 years, hosting Lockport, a Southwest Suburban Blue rival, obviously. Lockport wins 21-14. Brandon Metcher, the Lockport quarterback, had a touchdown run on a 49-yard touchdown pass. Second time Lockport beat Sandburg this year. Excuse me. I've been coughing all day, Of course, we decide to sit down and record. And that's what my
well, once you start talking, it's going to happen. So you're all good.
Yeah. One thing I noted about Lockport is, I walk the sidelines on both sides like I usually do. Lockport is a really big team, I think Mike O'Brien wrote about it a little bit too, that people I think have kind of forgotten that it wasn't that long ago that Lockport won a state championship. George Chart, obviously one of the best coaches around. He built the Lincoln Way North program, then went over to Lockport. The Porters are kind of an interesting team. Like I said, they're very big, physical, and 8A is a gauntlet, obviously, but I was impressed by what I saw from Lockport.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna go see them this week. They're playing a Saturday night game against HF, so I'm thinking of definitely going to see them. But yeah, you're right. They've won 6 straight. They started 1-3, and now they've won 6 straight. So they're definitely rolling. So my games, I'll give you a minute if you want to go get some water or what have you. I'll take it over for a little bit, Mike.
Okay.
My game Friday, I went to Oaklawn Richards and saw Richards take on Edwardsville. It was great to be out at Richards, Mike. I hadn't been at Richards quite a few years, and last time I was there was grass. so nice to see the upgrades at the Gary Corn Field. Again, good game for the home team, Richards, with the 33-14 win over Edwardsville. The Bulldogs got off to a 33-0 lead and just kind of cruised after that. Again, just really impressed offensively. Really nice mix. Ahmad Buchanan, the running back, had a really strong game. Kind of liked him a lot. Knew a little bit about him, but getting to watch him run the football, definite threat every time he touches it. And Noah Acevedo, their senior quarterback, really talented, kind of a run pass kind of guy, and pretty big up front on the offensive line. And for Edwardsville, unfortunately, Mike, not one of their better teams. They had injury problems throughout the year. They were, I think, on their 3rd or 4th quarterback this year. And I don't care how good of a program you are. You certainly don't want to have to go that deep to find a quarterback that can take over the program. So big win for Richards, and they continue. They'll host Hersey this week, which should be a really good matchup in 7A. One of the big questions, Mike, going into that was how well will Richards do in 7A? Well, if last week was any indication, so far so good.
Yeah, Ahmad Buchanan, it's kind of an interesting story. That Richards had a D1 running back last year. Miles Mitchell graduated, and Ahmad had not been a running back ever in his career. So they're looking for somebody to do that job, and he's been very good this year. I want to say he had 5 or 6 touchdowns in one game this year. So, and Richards, of course, is, known for its running backs over the years. Noah Escobedo, like you mentioned, two sports star, also a really good baseball player. They got a lot of stuff going on offense for sure. And it's funny because somebody had asked me that the other week or so. Why did Richards go up? Was it just to escape East St. Louis? And they make no bones about it. Yes, that's exactly the reason.
Yeah.
Richards played East St. Louis quite a few times in recent years. Doesn't want to play the Flyers again. Can't really blame him. So they thought, not that 7A is an easy road, but you don't have to see East St. Louis. And especially with Richards always being on the south side of well, actually, in the 6A, they'd be on the south side of the bracket, so they'd see East St. Louis before they would even get to state. So it made a lot of sense for Richards to bump up.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, again, that was my Friday game. Saturday, Mike, we talked about out of Gately. St. Francis gets the win 35-28 over Morgan Park. Again, just a really good game, well-played game. And, again, we talked about the path as far as for Wheaton St. Francis. So they beat Morgan Park at Gately. Now they get to host Prairie Ridge, number 1 seed in round 2. So you go Morgan Park, Prairie Ridge. You win that, which is kind of strange, but you're going to wind up playing the winner of King and Corliss in the quarterfinal. And then you're staring down at maybe, I don't know, Cary Grove or the winner of Cary Grove St. Pat's, or maybe Belvedere North as well. So again, nothing really easy at all for St. Francis. But as you mentioned, I was really surprised too that Bob McMillan came out and just went run heavy. I mean, that first 2 drives, there were no bones about it. They were going to run and go smash mouth football right at Morgan Park. And, for the most part, they had success. So I give them a lot of credit for able to find a way to get the win to move on. And then Saturday night, I wound up at West Aurora hosting Belleville East. And Mike simply put a shootout. That's exactly what it was right out of the gates. It's one of those games, and you've been to them and you've covered them, where you could tell right away after the first series or 2, these two are going to exchange a lot of scores back and forth. Real high tempo game. West Aurora, pretty good team. And the one thing I want to say for sure is I know you and I talked a bit, and I talked with Michael Bryan about it as well over the weekend. The lack of, we'll say, crowds or playoff atmosphere. You could really sense it at some of these games that, there's various reasons that maybe we'll get into later or why that's happening. But West Aurora Saturday night, Mike, great atmosphere. And I tell you, you don't expect it because let's face it, West Aurora is playing in the Upstate 8. A lot of people don't pay a ton of attention to the Upstate 8. It's they've had very limited playoff success over the last several years. But I tell you what, Mike, you've been out there in the summer and you see some of the stuff that Nate Eimers does for that football program. That community comes out and supports. I mean, those home stands are filled. And what's cool is it's not just the students, and it's just not like the parents of the band and what have you. You've got old timers. You've got people coming out from the houses in the neighborhood, walking over, a half hour before game time. They got their portable bleacher seat and everything. They got their blankets and stuff. Just great to see. And I mean, it truly, truly was a great atmosphere. Belleville East comes away. The people already hit me up wanting to know what they can expect out of Belleville East. Very fast, very athletic team. Some very good skills and definitely a big play capable team. So Mount Carmel traveling down to Belleville East on Saturday night to play them at 4:00. And I think the Caravan will be okay. But again, Belleville East is one of those teams, Mike, where don't be surprised if they break open a big play or two against the Caravan.
Yeah, I would, certainly second. Nate Eimer does a tremendous job about everything. They kind of position themselves as the kings of summer football in Illinois. They do a lot of events. They do a 7-on-7. They do the lineman challenge. I think they do multiple 7-on-7s actually. So they're kind of trying to make themselves the summer football capital of Illinois. As far as the crowds are concerned, Friday was Halloween. I think that probably had an effect. In week 9, I think I'd mentioned this last week, the Carmel Loyola game in Wilmette in week 9 right before game time, it was a very small crowd, and they started early that game too. They started at 6:30 for TV. It filled in a little bit, but it was not as big as I've seen. Um,
Right.
Most Mount Carmel Loyola games. I know people who went to Loyola or Mount Carmel this week mentioned that the crowd, they actually put some new bleachers in after they basically they set a attendance record in the Brother Rice game this year.
Yeah.
So
I was at that game with Mike O'Brien. Yeah, it
I
was
think
absolutely
something
slammed.
similar for this one didn't happen. They had a smaller crowd for this one, so I don't know what the reason is. Certainly wasn't the weather. Most places, like you said, there was rain a few places, but I think, for I think what a lot of it is, honestly, especially for a program like Mount Carmel, there's some fans that aren't going to come out for the early round games, even against Loyola. They're going to wait till later in the playoffs. Basically, is what it comes down to. They're kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to say they're spoiled, but they expect Mount Carmel to
Spoiled.
win the games. So
Yeah.
that's kind of
But
what
I think, and again, we've talked about this before in the past, and I don't want to go down a big rabbit hole on this, but first of all, we'll never know how many people are watching live streaming, and we'll never know how much money IHSA or whatever is making. They'll just never tell us, and that's fine. But Mike, it's definitely played an impact because you're seeing less crowd in the playoffs. Obviously, the weather gets colder and it's worse. And I don't blame people. And again, in a lot of cases, it's family, it's friends that are out of town, out of state, what have you. Hey, at least they're watching high school football, which to me is a positive. They're still involved. There's still interest there. Me personally, I love the playoff atmosphere. I love being there live. There's no other event like it. But I get it, and people are able to do it. And I guess, Mike, if they're watching, I'm sure IHSA okay with it, because if they weren't, we probably would have heard about it by now. So I think they're making out okay with the live streaming aspect of it and NFHS. But Mike, I definitely think that's a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, back in the day, you could not experience the game except in person. So, I'm sure that has something to do with it. Is this an aberration or is it a trend? I don't know. We'll find out as we go forward.
Yep.
Wanted to talk a little bit more, even though we've talked about this a lot. I see a lot of comments online. It's like, how could the IHSA let York and Lions play each other back-to-back weeks? How could the IHSA let Mount Carmel and Loyola play each other back-to-back weeks? Well, again, I'll say it one more time for the folks in the back. There is a very specific formula that's laid out, and the IHSA does not adjust anything because of the formula. The only leeway that the IHSA has is where do you draw the north-south line in 1A through 6A. Now, sometimes there are schools that are kind of close to each other, close to the line. So that's the one place where the IHSA has some discretion, basically.
Yep.
Everything else is set up. It's, first of all, your wins. Second of all, your opponent's wins. Third criteria is the wins of the teams you have beat. There's a few more, and it gets down to a coin flip on I don't know, was it the fifth or sixth criteria? It's the coin flip. But there is no, and one of the reasons that it's like this, and the IHSA does not have the power to say, okay, we're not going to play Mount Carmel, Loyola 2 weeks in a row. We're not going to have Lions and York play 2 weeks in a row, because if you start going down that road and say, okay, we're going to split these up, even though the numbers say that they should play each other, then they're going to be the conspiracy theorists, coming out of the woodwork saying, well, the IHSA is trying to engineer a result. And the IHSA, honestly, folks, the IHSA does not care who winds up at Illinois State on Thanksgiving weekend. Whoever gets there, whoever wins the championship games, gets celebrated. And that's the reality,
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to argue when that happens in a 1 through 32 seeding. Even the coaches will tell you, they don't like it, obviously, and if they don't like it, they won't be shy about telling you. But they also understand. The ones that I've talked to where it's happened to over the past, they'll just say, look, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's right there in black and white. So, it's the bad luck of the draw in a lot of cases. Now, it gets a little funkier in 6A and below when they're not seeded 1 through 32. But Mike, in 7 and 8, it's kind of hard to have too much of a complaint when they're actually seeding it that way.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's like it honestly, and I don't want to, I don't want to criticize the fans because the fans are one of the things that makes the game great.
Right.
But I mean,
Yep.
a lot of fans just don't seem to understand the way it works, even though it's been explained multiple times. So that's
Yep.
kind of why I brought it up. Hopefully, that explains why these games happen. We don't go outside of the Chicago area very often, but there's something we have to talk about.
Yep.
Downstate, PORTA and Fairfield played. End of the game, Fairfield is leading 8-6. PORTA has the ball, and didn't do that for dramatic effect, honestly. But PORTA has the ball, and PORTA apparently kicks a game-winning field goal as time expires to win 9-8. PORTA's last series, they were given 5 downs. There were 2 runs, 2 spikes, and a field goal. That's 5.
That's 5.
The most remarkable thing about all of this is the officials didn't catch it. The chain gang didn't catch it. The Fairfield coaches didn't catch it. The PORTA coaches didn't catch it. All these people did not catch it, and it didn't even come out until about a day later.
Right.
I think it came out yesterday, Saturday or Sunday, whatever, the day after the game, and people were talking about it all over the internet. And I saw from the Springfield State Journal Register, they had talked to the PORTA coach, who said he went back and looked at the huddle film, and it's right there on the huddle film, plain as day, 5 downs. And the IHSA released a statement saying that game officials' decisions are final. There is no path for appeal to the IHSA, even though Fairfield has said that they are going to appeal it. And there was even some talk that PORTA, knowing that the mistake happened, should forfeit. And this surprised me, that apparently that's against the IHSA bylaws too. Once you play a game, you can't forfeit it, which is really odd to me for 2 reasons. Number one, in other sports, including baseball, softball, basketball, teams do forfeit in the state series. Yes, they're before the games are played, but there is a mechanism for a team to forfeit. Number 2, we have had disciplinary procedures by the IHSA where teams were disqualified retroactively.
Yep.
Always, though, the difference being it's because of an ineligible player. If an ineligible player played in a game, and depending on the level of, and it's not always that, but I mean, if that ineligible player had a significant role in the game, then the IHSA has gone back in and disqualified the team. So first of all, I would say, I think the bylaw needs to be changed so that if something like this would ever happen again, hopefully it doesn't, but if the team that received the unfair advantage wants to do the sportsmanlike thing and forfeit, they should be allowed to. I don't understand why they're not allowed to forfeit this game. It doesn't make any sense to me. Number 2, we talk a lot about officiating and about how hard the official's job is, but I don't know how they miss it. I mean, You and I have been to games before where
Yep.
we have seen a down might have been lost or added here or there, but it was never the down that won the game, basically.
Right.
So, usually they would catch it. Somebody would catch it, like right away, basically. And it's kind of like in baseball. Sometimes the umpire will get the count wrong, and then that'll get fixed.
Yep.
But I don't know. I mean, I would.
Do you
wonder.
remember? We've had this happen before. Remember Plainfield North and Fenwick?
Yes.
Same scenario.
Mhm.
Generally the same scenario. Now that happened in a semifinal game in 7A.
Right.
So Plainfield North ended up winning that game. Fenwick went through the same procedure, tried to protest it, couldn't do it, not allowed. I know Fenwick took it to court, got a temporary injunction. They heard it, I think, that Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. So again, I'm out here in the Joliet area, and Plainfield North is one of the schools we covered, so we're kind of right in the middle, involved in all this stuff. What the court eventually judged and ruled on, and again, this has all gone through the legal channels already once before. The judge basically said, look, you voluntarily joined this organization. When you do that, you agree to abide by their bylaws and their rules. According to their bylaws and rules, the game is decided on the field. Game over. And is it fair? No. Should it be changed? And it's something they can obviously look into. And you can change anything you really want to in the IHSA through proper channels. But in the meantime, I totally get why the IHSA has those bylaws in place for what we just talked about. I mean, so you decide to protest this. When do you replay the game? Is it the next day? Is it the next week? There's a lot of gray.
I guess what the Fairfield fans would say, the game was over because it was
should have never got the extra down, right?
They spiked it on fourth down, which took the ball over, basically. So I don't know. You're right.
It's so odd. It's so odd that no one really caught it. That's what's really strange. Like you would think, if you're the losing team in that scenario,
right.
If you had a timeout, and my guess is towards the end of the game, they probably didn't have any timeouts left. But if you realize that Mike was different, when you call timeout immediately if you knew what was going on?
Yeah, I don't understand, how nobody in the stadium knew that there were 5 downs. And it wasn't even like they were arguing it in the moment, because I think the Fenwick Plainfield North thing, I think Fenwick did say something before the teams left the field, they even said something, but the officials were like, no, the game's over, So that was a situation where the game officials actually could have corrected their error. That was a little bit different here. In this case, the game officials didn't know they made an error. So,
and in a lot of cases, Mike, and you've seen it and I've seen it too, you'll see them gather and come together, and 9 times out of 10, they'll make the right call because they want to make the correct call. They don't want to have anything decided by this. And I give those guys credit because I've seen that happen in some of the really tough situations. They stick to their guns and they get together and make that call. That obviously didn't happen here. But, it's just incredibly, incredibly sad that all that went down. You feel bad for the team that didn't move on, and the team that did, kind of like Plainfield North in that situation, they just played the game. That's all. They just played, and whether they had an extra down or not, they kept telling them to play, and they didn't stop it. So you can't blame the kids, and I felt bad for the kids in that situation.
No, absolutely.
They cheated them. The kids didn't cheat anyone out of anything. They just played.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any ill intent or anything on anybody's part here. It's just
I agree.
ignorance of the situation. So,
Yeah.
moving on, just wanted to mention a few other notable events and occurrences. Mount Carmel 21, Loyola 17, one of the rematches. It was a close game. It was 11, wound up being an 11-point game the week before, 35-24. That was because Loyola scored on the last play of the game. So
Right.
it was really a 3-score game up until the very last play. This one, Loyola was up 14-0. Mount Carmel comes back, and Loyola was not going to let Quentin Burrell beat them. They double covered him the entire game, but you can't double cover Quentin Burrell and Marshawn Thornton.
Yeah.
Marshawn Thornton, 80 and 92-yard touchdowns from Emma Dowling. And, those of us who do rankings, you do rankings, I do rankings, Loyola is a hard one to figure out what to do with here.
Yep.
They're out of the playoffs. They're not going to the Prep Bowl. They finished 4-5. And they gave Mount Carmel two of the toughest games Mount Carmel had all year, but they also lost 3 other games.
Yep.
They only won 4, partly because they didn't play in week 2. So, all of us are going to kind of have to figure out, is Loyola one of the top 25 teams in Illinois, which is the poll that I do for Be Live. You do 8A polls, you do all class polls. So we're going to have to figure that one out.
It's a really good point, a really good question, because I agree. I mean, they're not your typical 4-5 team, not at all. So yeah, I agree. And I tell you what, you got to give kudos to that Loyola coaching staff, because you figure if there's a staff in the state that would be able to find a way to slow down Mount Carmel, it was Loyola. They definitely did that on Saturday. So hey, here's a question for you before we go on to our other top performers. So Mount Carmel fans be getting a little nervous right now, in your opinion? This is like the second or third game in a row, a little closer than usual, or is everyone getting spoiled because they are actually playing close games?
I don't think you need to be worried if you're a Mount Carmel fan, just because the nature of what they do, which is throw the ball very effectively to, these are the 2 elite receivers we've talked about. They have other receivers too that are pretty good.
God, yeah. Tavares Harrington is as good as anyone. So yeah, there's all kinds.
Yeah. So the thing about that obviously is that, if you're a ground oriented team, kind of like what St. Francis did to Morgan Park, you pound and pound and pound, you get 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 yards a pop. It takes a while to score. With Mount Carmel, you're always one play away from scoring.
Yep.
With an 80-yarder, a 92-yarder, and that's the thing that they've always got in their back pocket, that that they can always, if they can stay close or keep it close, even though they're down 14-0, didn't matter really. I mean, I don't think anybody at Mount Carmel was thinking, "Oh, we're panicking now because we're down 14-0," because we know that we can score and we will score. So I don't think that they're panicking. I think that I believe one of the players, I don't recall which one it was, had mentioned in Mike O'Brien's story that they did
come out Winkler, linebacker.
I think it might have been Winkler. Yeah, they said they came out a little bit flat, which is understandable. But
I get it for sure.
Yeah, they figured it out. So So moving on, guess who's back? Yes, and so the foregone conclusion that he was going to get Logan Malachuk's record. Well, he's not there yet, because
I can tell you how close.
Okay.
He is 216 yards away.
Okay, so
that's the latest.
Good shot at it for it to happen. Jonas Williams, Lincoln Way East, USC commit in a win over Stevenson, 45-0. It was 9 of 19, passing 228, 4 touchdowns. And the record we're talking about, he's already got the career passing touchdowns record set earlier this year. He is going after the career passing yardage record set by Logan Malachuk of Nazareth last year. So you say he's 216 short. So that is probably a typical game for Jonas as long as he doesn't get hurt again. And that's, Lincoln Way East again. The last 2 weeks was another team that, where do you rank them? Do you rank them on the resume that they put together while Jonas was playing? And how do you factor in the 2 losses they took to Naperville North and Sandburg without him? Now that he's back, you probably move them way back up again, I would think. They're not number one. They can't be number one because they do have the 2 losses, and somewhere in the top 5, Brother Rice has a pretty good argument for being number 2, I would say, at this point, because their only loss was to Mount Carmel. So anyway, and honestly, Rob Zvonar doesn't care a bit about that. He doesn't care where they're ranked at all. So he is just glad to have his quarterback back, and that's where that is. A few other performances worth noting. Their quarterbacks, as it turns out this week, Hinsdale Central, Riley Contreras, two-way standout for them, had 4 total touchdowns. Bishop McNamara quarterback Carter Kritzinger, 234 yards, 4 TDs, and IC Catholic quarterback Nate Lang, 253 and 5 touchdowns, including 4 in 1 quarter in the Knights win. So there's a few more impressive performances. I do have a Prep Bowl update for us.
Hit that up. Fill us in.
There are 15 teams in the bracket, 8 on the public league side, 7 on the Catholic league side. All of the teams may not wind up being in the Prep Bowl bracket, depending on what they do this week. You can still drop back after this week. Some of these teams have won already. There are 3 games this week: Leo at Marmion, Marian Catholic at Notre Dame, and Peyton against Young. The other CPS teams that are in the bracket: Kenwood, Lane, Morgan Park, Simeon, King, and Bulls Prep. Some of those teams are still alive in the playoffs, and the other ESCC teams, Catholic League ESCC teams, are St. Rita, St. Patrick, and St. Ignatius. So again, some of those teams may win this week and wind up not being in the Prep Bowl playoffs, but that is that. That leads up to that game will be on Friday of Thanksgiving week at noon, and it'll be at a public league stadium. I think it'll probably be at either Lane or Hanson. So do we have any questions?
We do. Guy Matt now is out there. Well, I think kind of went over the whole Fairfield PORTA. So it's kind of what he's getting. Everyone knows by now, in the game between Fairfield and PORTA was given a 5th down and 1 on a game-winning field goal. IHSA bylaw states that they can't overturn the result. I believe in the case of a situation like this, the IHSA should make an exception. In my opinion, this needs to change. Question is, what would it take? Would it be a proposal, vote, etc.? Thanks for what you guys do. Also of note, I'm back this week. So that's for our guy, Matt now. I'm not sure, Mike, you might have a better handle on it than I do, but is it something? I don't believe it would be a school-wide vote, would it, to change that?
Well, first of all,
they've got to want to do it, which I don't think they'd want to do, but
yeah. I mean, I think the problem with, first of all, reversing this one now, the problem we have is that if you do this, and a lot of people pointed this out online, if you do this, you're creating a precedent that you will overturn results on the field. You will overturn officials' rulings, wrong or right. And I understand the IHSA's reluctance to get involved in something like that, because then more people want them to do it. And if they don't do it in a situation down the road, they'll say that, oh, there's, the world we live in is that there are conspiracy theories about everything, and that the IHSA is putting its thumb on the scale for a certain team or against another team.
Yeah.
As I said before, I think the rule change that needs to be made is teams should be allowed to forfeit if they believe that they advanced unfairly and they want to do the sportsmanship oriented thing by forfeiting. I think they should be allowed to. I don't understand why that's not an option right now. So that's where I would leave it. In terms of the IHSA overruling something that happened like this, I don't. First of all, I don't think it's going to happen. That they're going to change the rule to allow this to happen, and again, I don't think that they would want to do it either. So, as unfair as it is, I feel bad for the Fairfield folks too. You play all year to get to this point, and you feel like you should have a win. But again, I mean, and I don't want to sound callous by saying this, but somebody should have caught it.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. I know.
I don't know what else to say. I mean, somebody somewhere should be keeping track of that and saying something while you still can, which is, while the officials are still there on the field and the game's still going on. So that's my thought.
I would think most teams have a statistician, yes, for the most part.
Definitely for the playoffs. I think that's actually a mandate from the IHSA, partly because there are playoff records that the IHSA keeps. So I think that's part of their playoff hosting manual, is that the home school has to designate someone to keep stats, in the case it's someone who ends up running for 400 yards or something like that, so that it's documented. So yeah, there should be a statistician there for sure.
Okay. Also, one other question from Wes Breton, who's becoming like a regular asking us questions, which is cool. Give us a few teams that you think could pull off huge round two upsets. Extra points if people think you're nuts. So,
okay, Wes.
Love that. All right, I'll give Mike a minute to go look at a few things if he needs to. I'll take it. 8A. I kind of, looking at the 8 bracket, I like Hinsdale Central, but boy, I hate their matchup this week with Maine South. Anyone but Maine South, and I'd feel a lot better about it. Mike, I like Lockport. I think Lockport is a 23 seed. We talked about it. They've won 6 straight games. I like the way they play. They established run the ball pretty well. They're getting enough play out of Beecher, the quarterback. And defensively, Georgia's teams are always solid. So, I think they've got a good game this week against HF. They lost to HF early in the season. They're going to want to get payback on that. And then the winner of that play the winner of Glenbrook South Barrington. I think Lockport could be in a nice run here in 8A. So I like them for sure in 8A. St. Rita's always dangerous in 7. They're, obviously they're a 25 seed. Everyone knows who they lost to, so they're battle tested. I think that's an interesting part of the bracket. And then again, Glenbard North hosting Moline this week. I tell you what, Ryan Wilkins is another guy that kind of in the same vein as George Chart. He's a defensive guy. The Panthers always play really tough defense. They run the football, they do things you need to do in November to win playoff games. I think Glenbard North could be a really nice sleeper team.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've had a chance to take a quick look at this here.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, it's.
No, I would throw Kenwood out there.
Yes, I would too.
Kenwood lost to St. Francis in week 1, has won 9 in a row, is going to Lincoln Way West, which is a tough test. Obviously, the Warriors have been playing really well all year long. They're one of the 3 teams out of the Southwest Suburban Red, along with Bradley and Lincoln Way Central, that have been very good all year long. But Kenwood has best quarterback in the city in Kenyante Lewis, and they have some really good receivers. So they can break some things, that kind of like what I was talking about before with Mount Carmel, its ability to always break along when in the passing game. Kenwood could do that too. there's been a lot of chatter again about the public league's lack of competitiveness, which, again, we talked about last week, was addressed by the public league by
Yep.
limiting how many teams get into the playoffs. But Kenwood, for those of us who have seen them, I think they're legit
good.
to.
Yeah, I saw them in the summer. We talked about this. I saw them in the summer.
Yeah.
And after seeing them in the summer, I thought, you know what? This team's going to win a lot of games. They're pretty good. Keontae Lewis, the quarterback, is as good as they come. So they've got a real shot. Now, that's a good call on them. That'll be a really good matchup with Lincoln Way West this week.
Yeah, for sure. So the one thing I do want to mention too, and I didn't write it down, but we should give a shout out to JCA that played Glenwood to a one-score game on the road, and people were like, why is JCA in the playoffs? Well, they almost sprung the biggest upset of round one in any class, basically. So not really a surprise to those of us who are familiar with Jake Jaworski and the program. They've obviously had a really tough road, and just winding up that being their first round game, not an easy place to go.
No.
Play a 9-0 team on the road, but that was kind of an interesting result, I thought, and obviously the Hilltoppers almost pulled it off. So that would have been the biggest upset of round one by far. And that's kind of another trend we saw this week, that there were not really any upsets there were some games that you thought maybe they can go the other way, but there weren't any scores you looked at and said, wow, I can't believe that score, or that team won. So I thought it was.
So they're done with the questions. The questions are done.
Okay.
Do you want me to go through this a little bit? We'll just talk briefly on some classes if you want.
Sure.
So 8A round two, we talked about Mount Carmel heading down south. They're taking on Belleville East Saturday at 4:00. I think the Caravan will be fine. But again, East can run a little bit. They've got team speed and they're capable of big plays, so that could be something to watch out for. Lincoln Way East at Palatine Friday, 7:00. Interesting matchup. I think one of the better matchups here, Mike. Friday, Lions at Friend. Friend obviously having a very good year. Lions continue to be on a late season run here. Should be a good matchup. Warren Township, Saturday, 7:00, hosting Bolingbrook. Bolingbrook, Mike, another team kind of resurging here this year. Timmy Lewis, the running back for Bolingbrook, having a big year. Again, just some interesting matchups in the upper bracket. Lower bracket, Glenbrook South at Barrington, HF at Lockport, as we mentioned, Saturday night. Maine South at Hinsdale Central. Again, Mike, I really like Hinsdale Central, but oh man, that's a rough round two matchup for them taking on the Hawks. And then Lane Tech, they are on the road at Oswego. So anything jump out at you there, Nate?
No, I would agree with you that Lions Friend is a great matchup. Lions, I think that, we talked a lot last year that they had, their first undefeated regular season in forever, basically. And I think a lot of people were kind of counting out the Lions this year because they lost a lot of big contributors from that team. But
they had a really good senior class.
They do a lot of things right. Fremd has, been pretty good for a while, and they're kind of, they've got Johnny O'Brien as a senior quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the state. And, this is the year that they've been pointing towards. So I think that's a really interesting matchup. Lane beat Perspectives in the first round. They go out to play Oswego. That's a tough matchup because Oswego runs the ball really well, and Lane runs the ball pretty well too. They've got a running back who's going to Missouri, Max Warner, as we know. So, that's going to be a tough one for Lane. But I think, if you're looking at it, like if you want a game to go to in 8A and you're not really a fan of anybody, I would say, Lions and Fremd is probably the game you want to go to for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. 7A, Hersey at Richards. It's Friday at 7:00. Again, two interesting matchups. Two teams interesting going up against each other. Mike, I'll tell you right now, out of all the matchups, this might be one of the better ones the entire weekend. Lincoln Way Central at St. Rita. Very similar style. They both do a lot of the things alike. They both want power running game going, and they'll work off play action off of that. Two really good teams. And again, I think it's going to be a great matchup. Batavia at Glenbard East. Watch out for John Walters' teams. They're always well coached, always ready come postseason. They've had last couple of years, they've had some nice runs in 7A. We'll see if they can do it again. That's a big task taking on Batavia. Moline coming to Chicagoland. They will play Glenbard North Saturday at 2 o'clock. Bottom portion, we mentioned Downers Grove North at Duchamp Field, taking on Glenbard West. Saturday at 1 o'clock. Kenwood at Lincoln Way West. Again, another really interesting matchup there. Mike, over under of the game between Carmel and St. Charles North, I'll say like 150. I think you could see a lot of points.
Yeah, both of those teams definitely like to light up the scoreboard for sure. Carmel has been kind of building toward this for a while. They haven't really had a playoff run for a while, but St. Charles North has had some, and they're kind of back. It looks like, but two good quarterbacks there, two good offenses there for sure.
And then finally, Brother Rice on the road at Jacobs. And if you're Brother Rice, it's a fun atmosphere in Jacobs, no doubt about it, for a night game there. So Saturday night, 6 o'clock kickoff will be interesting. But on the flip side, Mike, if you're Brother Rice, you're thrilled to go on the road in the second round, because odds are you're going to get another home game or two if things work out accordingly. So I think it's a kind of a mixed bag there a little bit for the Crusaders, but I think they'd rather have a possible semifinal at home as opposed to not. So we'll see how that goes. 6A, Naz at Wheaton Warrenville South Saturday at 4. Antioch at Lake Zurich. That is a rematch. Lake Zurich won that game 33-0 back in week 1 or 2. It was early in the year. Harlem out of the Rockford area. They are at Burlington Central. Rolling Meadows at Fenwick. Lower part, East St. Louis at Glenwood. Glenwood coming off the win over JCA. Normal West at Simeon, taking on the Wolverines at Gately Saturday at 1 o'clock. Bradley at St. Lawrence. Boy, that could be a really good game Saturday at 6. And then Dunlap on the road at Crete Monee. Crete Monee was at 73 points they scored on Quincy. So Crete Monee, that offense definitely pretty high potent in 6A.
Yeah, that was actually a Crete Monee playoff record. They played 50 playoff games, so it's a pretty big sample size. Going back to Wes's question, and maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm going to be completely wrong. Maybe this will be, those of us who are on X talk about, you may follow the account Freezing Cold Takes, where they expose opinions that did not age very well at all. But I think Simeon might be able to compete with Normal West. We'll see. Simeon has some playmakers. They're playing at home, which always is a big advantage for a CPS team. So we can see Simeon maybe making a game out of that one. We'll see.
Yeah, no question. 5A, Prairie Ridge, as we mentioned, at Wheaton St. Francis Saturday at 1 o'clock. King at taking on Corliss. That game is at Gately at 4:30. Boy, busy couple of days for Gately, for sure.
Yes.
Canelan at Belvedere North Friday at 7 o'clock up in the Rockford area. Cary Grove at St. Pat's Saturday at 6:30 at Triton. Yeah, St. Pat's is playing at Triton this year. So that'll be Triton, the lower half of Class 5A. Muhammad Seymour at number 1 seed Washington, Illinois. Providence Catholic, they are on the road at Kankakee Saturday at 3. Bloomington at Oak Forest. How about the Bengals 9-1 this year? Very nice year for them. And finally, Peoria on the road at Morton. That is a Saturday, 7 o'clock. Anything jump out at you on 5A?
I guess, probably Kankakee is kind of an interesting matchup for sure.
Oh, yeah. No question.
I
The winner of that could go.
Yeah, I don't know an awful lot about some of those downstate teams. I think I would be surprised if we don't have a Prairie Ridge Cary Grove rematch back from week 1, which I was at.
Yeah, I agree.
Actually.
Yep. Yep.
I think that's probably going to happen.
Yep.
Will one of our local teams come out of the bottom bracket? Provi and Kankakee certainly have the ability. I know that Kankakee is dealing with some injuries, and that could impact that. So we'll have to see how that develops for the K's.
Yep. I'll go through quickly Chicago area teams. There's obviously more than 4 than the rest of the classes, but we'll cover them a little bit from a Chicagoland perspective. 4A Montini, the 1 seed, they go on the road early, which again, I'm sure they're thrilled with that. At Peoria, Notre Dame, do not have a time for that yet. Coal City on the road Friday at Houston.
Sorry, that's 2:00 on Saturday. And
Okay.
can we explain how Peoria Notre Dame is in the north? I don't really understand that, but
yeah,
I guess that's
sorry, I won't answer that.
Seems kind of odd. I mean, looking at the other teams that are in the bracket, I get it, but that just kind of jumps out at you like, what?
Yeah, that is a really south border, isn't it? You're talking basically Springfield is the cut line.
Right. Yeah.
So again,
Coal
City Dixon should be a really good game. Metamora at Morris. Again, that's a Saturday 3:00 game. Should be very, very strong. And that northern part is mainly your Chicago area schools. 3A. I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Morris is a team we haven't really talked about very much. They've done a pretty good job. I saw them when they knocked out Morgan Park last year, when they were really young and were kind of figuring themselves out. It looks like they kind of figured themselves out this year for sure.
They had a really strange week 9 loss to a team from Michigan, and I don't know what was going on, but we've seen that before where something weird happens in week 9, and I think Morris is going to be just fine. They're really strong.
Yeah.
All right. 3A from the Chicagoland area, Richmond Burton, the 1 seed. They're at Aurora Central Catholic on Friday at 7:00. Kankakee, Bishop Mack. Oh, very good game. Bishop Mack at Immaculate Conception, IC Catholic, Friday at 7:00. So that should be a really good matchup. I saw Kankakee, Bishop Mack a little bit earlier this year. Again, they're very strong, real senior heavy team. Sure. So that is the representation in 3A.
Yeah, those teams know each other a lot too, because they've played each other a lot over the years for sure too. We got 2 local teams in 2A, and one of them is a school right down the street from me. Which is Wilmington. The other one's Aurora Christian. Wilmington, Seneca, 2 longtime rivals. They used to be in the same conference together years ago. And that's an interesting second round matchup. My goodness,
great.
Wilmington 9-1.
Great second round matchup.
Oh, yeah. So Jeff Rentz is just pretty much doing the same thing he always does. Looking to add another banner to the stadium there. And in 1A, we have kind of a couple of Chicagoland adjacent schools playing each other, actually. Clifton Central at Dwight, and that's really the only local interest in 1A right now. So
Well, good. Thoughts? Anything else you need to get out there before we wrap? We're over an hour. Congratulations.
I know. Yeah, it seems to where we wind up lately. I'm looking forward to some of these games. I don't know where I'm going this week yet. Do you know where you're going yet?
Still working through it.
Okay.
Yep.
So follow our X feeds, and you will be able to see where we are going when we figure it out later in the week. Get out, see some games. I see that we might get some snow flurries this weekend too. So just flurries. We're
due for something.
Nothing is going to stick though, so I think we're okay weather-wise for one more week at least. But that's all I've got.
Yep, me too. All right, that'll do it. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back next week. We'll recap round 2, preview the quarterfinal round, and all that good stuff. So for Mike Clark and EDGYTIM, thanks, everyone. Talk to you next week. And by all means, go out and watch a game.